Hi, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast. As the owners of Hired Hand website software, we've been developing websites and creating internet marketing strategies for livestock breeders for the past 10 years.
The majority of our customers are involved in the breeding of registered animals, such as Texas Longhorn, Highland cattle, horses, and white-tailed deer, where the pedigrees are very important. The From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast examines many of the differences in raising pedigreed livestock for maximum profit. Join us and learn what we're covering today.
Today on our podcast, I'm super excited about the guest that we have. She's joining us all of the way from Mühlviertel, Austria. Did I get even close?
Yes, it's good.
Okay. So I'm here with Lisa Handlos, and her ranch is located in Upper Austria, which is in Oberösterreich County, right? Oh, perfect. So why don't you start, Lisa, by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, what to say? I come from a non-farming background, so whenever I was raised with my siblings, we did have a lot of animals, but just pets, like turtles and dogs and cats and all that, but no livestock at all. And then I had a short period of a corporate life where I sold forklift trucks all over the world, basically. And then my husband and I, we decided to move to the countryside and to find a nice place where we can raise our kids. By that time, I had a horse, a dog, and 2 cats. So no big farm at all. And it was never the plan to have a farm. So I just wanted to have my horse at home and maybe a friend of my horse. And yes, then we found a very nice little property, which is very, very small compared to the ranches you have over there. And we tried to rebuild the house because there was a little house there. It used to be a turkey farm, and it was terrible. It was really rotten, and it smelled like dead turkeys all over the place. It was
Oh, no.
not very nice. But so we decided to tear down the house and rebuild it. And that should be the place where we can raise our kids. And I could have my horses there and, have a happy life. And then the Austrian government, which is very great in every aspect there is, they said, if you want to tear down the farmhouse, you need to rebuild a farmhouse and you have to have a farm. And we're like, we're going to have horses. They're farm animals. And they're like, no. You need to do an agriculture. And we're like, okay, shoot, what do we do now? So they kind of forced us to get Longhorns in a way. Well, not really Longhorns, but I was researching then on the internet to see, what could we do with the little tiny bit of land that we have to make some sort of profitable farm? And I mean, we had no knowledge at all. And so I was looking on the internet and I came across different kinds of goats, like cashmere goats, but then I discovered you have to brush them every day. And I said, okay, I would need like 100 goats to be profitable, and I need to brush 100 goats twice a day. I'm not going to do that. Okay, no goats. And then we came across pigs. I was like, pigs? What do we do with pigs? Well, we could raise them and we could like slaughter them for meat, but they're so cute and they're so, could I slaughter pigs, if I like them? And it's not really profitable either. So we said, okay, maybe no pigs. And then I found Longhorns, and I used to live in Texas for a year when I was a student, when I was 16 years old. So I went to high school for my junior year. And I was like, wait a minute. I saw these really, really beautiful cows over there, and that would be a great idea. I mean, they would fit to my American quarter horse and to kind of, So I searched on the internet if there's a way to have Longhorns in Austria. And I found a breeder actually in Austria, and I went there straight, and then I saw them, and I was like, I looked at my husband and said, we need those cows. we need those cows. It doesn't happen. So he was like, no, we're not going to get cows. I mean, we have no clue about cows. I mean, we don't know what, But I was stronger.
The wife always wins, right?
Yes. No, and then I did more research and the calculations, and I was like, it's profitable. We could, make a break even at least, or earn a bit of money with it. So that would be a good deal overall. We pleased the Austrian government by doing some agriculture on our land, and we make some money with it. And they're pretty. They're the prettiest cows in the world. So, and then we're like, yeah, okay, we don't know. So we looked at another breeder in Germany that I found on the internet, and she's actually the largest breeder. She has the biggest herd in Europe back then. And we went there and we looked at them, and it was just perfect. I mean, she just got us so on board. And then I said, okay, well, but she told me, if you want calves, you need to order them now because she's sold out for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
But that would give us some time, to get a bit of cattle knowledge and to prepare and to build the barn accordingly and everything. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to order some calves for in 2 years. And that's what we did. And so we ordered 6 calves. Here in Europe, usually only calves are sold. So there's not a lot of fully grown cattle in Longhorns that are being sold. So you kind of don't really know what you get. So
Okay.
We ordered 5 females and a bull. And whenever they were born, she sent me pictures, and then we kind of selected them. There was not that big of a selection. There was just, a few calves. And we had to make sure that they matched the bull, that there's no inbreeding. And yes, that's how we kind of got started.
So I'm just thinking about a lot of the breeders here that I interview, and it's like they talk about it being an addiction, right? Like they see these Longhorns and they just have to have some, but they're going out and literally the next day they can go purchase 10 full grown steers or females or whatever they want, to start that, their herd and that obsession. But you all truly, you're truly starting from scratch. Not only did you have to be patient and wait 2 years for the calves, but then you're starting off with calves. So it's going to be a few years before you see those iconic horns, like you saw in high school out in the Texas pastures and stuff. That's a lot of patience.
It is, and it's terrible. But on the other hand, I'm really glad I don't have the opportunity to just go out and buy Longhorns because I'd be broke by now. Really broke. And I'm really, really happy. When I looked for Longhorns here in Europe, I was like, I know that they're bringing horses over from the US to Austria all the time, especially quarter horses. So I was like, I can buy cows in the US and get them over here just by plane. So I called the horse transport agency and I said, do you do cattle as well? And they're like, from the US to Europe? I was like, yeah, totally excited. And they're like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, why not? I mean, it's not that different. I would not get a fully grown Longhorn, maybe like a 1.5-year-old or something. So the horns are not going to be that big. So they're like, you're not able to import live cattle from the US to Europe. I was like, why not? It's like a horse. And they're like, no, it's a ruminant. You can't import ruminants from the US to Europe. And they kind of totally smashed it. And I was like, oh my God.
So why is that? Did you research that or did they explain it to you? Like, why is there that difference with cattle?
It's because of disease, basically. We have very strict laws in Europe for, tracing cattle. Every cattle has to have 2 ear tags with an identification number. So you don't have that. You have a branding, but you don't have they have to be put on the internet 7 days after a calf is born. You have to ear tag it and you have to register it with the ear tag. You have to order them from the state vet. So they can trace where every cattle in Europe is located at the specific time. And there's a lot of things going on with disease. So you guys in the US, you vaccinate like everything, and we don't do that over here. So, for example, I can't even import cattle from different states in Europe if they're vaccinated, because when they come to Austria and they pull blood and they look for antibodies, they don't know if the antibodies come from the vaccination or come from a disease.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that before. I was so green. I was like, why not? I tried to find ways to go through another country which is non-EU but has an agreement with Europe, but it's no way.
So I guess that leads me to question, like the lady you mentioned who had the largest herd in Germany. How do folks like that get started, or like how did Longhorns come to be, in that part of Europe and everything?
Yes, there is actually two different ways. So a few breeders started importing embryos, which is possible. Don't ask me why it is possible, but you can import embryos and put them in a cow here and have the calf being born in Europe. So that's possible, but the bulls and the cows that are flushed need special testing in the US and special certifications and all that. So it's not that easy. And there is a few Longhorn breeders who are doing that in the US for Europe, but it's not very many. So I have very, very limited selection of embryos that are certified for Europe. And it's really expensive. So you need to pay the embryo, you need to bring it over here, you need to place it in a cow, and I have the feeling that the vets over here are sometimes not so ready for doing embryo transfer. So I know a few breeders who are doing that, and they have a success rate of about 40 to 60%. So, yeah.
So that's a lot of investment to get it over there and then not necessarily know if it's going to be successful.
Yes. I know a breeder in Belgium who bought like 9 embryos, and he has 1 bull calf now.
Wow.
So that bull calf is really expensive. And yeah.
Well, let's go back a little bit to the 2 years. 2 years, you ordered your calves. Talk me through how those 2 years progressed for the work that you did on your farm, how you prepared for them, when you brought them home. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did a lot of research on the internet, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to build a barn. And here in Austria or in Europe in general, space is very limited. So you don't have a lot of land. You don't have big barns. So you need to kind of cope with very limited space. So I was actually watching a YouTube channel called Our Wyoming Life, which is a farmer who also comes from a corporate previous life and just got thrown into farm life. And he completely explained how this was. I mean, it didn't really affect the barn and everything, but how he had to learn to pull a calf or to, the feeding, the sorting of cattle and all that. And that kind of helped me to see how this guy learned everything by doing it. And that's basically what I did. So I tried to learn a lot through the internet by watching videos. And I also looked at different barns, how different people build up their barns. And, I would do a lot different now since I had the cattle, but it's not that bad. We can work with it. So, yeah.
Did you have to put up all new fencing and everything as well?
Yes. Great work.
So is your husband, does he enjoy that part of it? Does he play a role in it, or was it kind of just all on you to plan and lay it out and prepare?
Yeah, I'd say it's about 90% me. Yeah. He has.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah. Well, he runs his own company. He's in the wood industry. So he's quite busy with that. But he supports me whenever I really need him. So cleaning out the barn, that's what we do together. Or when the cows get out, which does happen sometimes, yeah.
And do your kids enjoy the animals?
Not as much as me, actually. They do like them, but they're not so into it. I mean, they grow up with it and they're like, yeah, we have cows, you know. When I asked my daughter, I asked her, do you want a pony? I always wanted a pony when I was a kid. I got a turtle. But yeah, and I asked her, you know, do you want a pony? We can put it, you know, with the cows, no problem. And she's like, no, Mom, I want a bird. Like, what kind of bird? Like a canary bird, you know, these tiny little yellow birds. And I was like, what? Well, we got neither. No pony, no bird. I was like, I'm pissed. No, it's kind of, I don't know why. My son, he likes them and he helps me a lot out, you know. When we bring them out to the pasture, they love running after them and they love calving season. But yeah, it's just normal for them. So.
Is it normal for your part of the country? Or so like I grew up in the Midwest here and we had Texas Longhorns, and there would be people that would be driving down the road and they would stop because they've never seen one before because they weren't common, you know, to have basically outside of Texas or the southern states. Is that what it's like near you? Is it kind of odd for folks to have Longhorns, or are they becoming more common?
No. It's really, really odd. People ask me why I'm a bull breeder. Like, what? Yeah, all your cattle have horns. They must be bulls. I'm like, oh my gosh. They skipped biology class in school. Yeah, no, it's really odd. It's really, really odd. But people like it. They're scared of them because they have horns. They can stab you. And I'm like, how are they going to stab you? They're not going to run sideways, you know. Anyway, no, people are really scared of them sometimes because of the horn, because they're really impressive. But people think they're really beautiful, just like me. So they stop by the pasture, you know, and look at them, and yeah.
So you got the pictures of the calves when they were born, the ones that you ordered. What happened when you got them home? You know, I think I saw on your website that was in like 2017. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, you know, talk to me about the last, you know, 7 years or so, how your herd has progressed and everything.
Oh, well, yeah, we got them home when they were like 8 months old. That was really a big day. I was so excited. So we drove out there with 2 horse trailers because in Europe, we don't have those huge trailers that you have in the US. So, and you need like a special permission and a special license to drive cattle and all that. It's crazy over here. So I had a friend of mine and myself. So we went out there with 2 horse trailers to pick up the calves. And then we got home and we unloaded them, and it was really exciting. I have a camera in my barn just to make sure, you know, everything is okay. And I checked it like 5 minutes at a time. So. And they all survived, luckily. No, and it was, you know, they were quite shy at the beginning. And we kept them inside because it was winter time. It was like the middle of December when we got them. So it was really cold and a lot of snow. And so we kept them inside to adjust and for us to get used to them. And we were not completely finished with our fencing outside. So, yeah, we had them inside for a few months. And it was a good time to kind of get to know them, to see how they react. And I like to have a very close contact to them so that they really know me well and I know them. Mm-hmm. So I started feeding them. I started feeding them by hand and start scratching them. And yeah. And since this was one of them was my first bull and I had never had any cattle before, I said, okay, I want a bull who's really, really nice because they can kill you in like no time. And since I'm not experienced at all, I want to make sure that my bull is really, really nice and I can handle him well. And I really managed to do that. So he's great. He's still here. So.
And the bull was the same age as the calves. Like he wasn't a little bit older. He was born around the same time.
Yeah. And I would not do that again because I had the problem that I wanted to breed my heifers the first time when they're around 2 years old. But then I had the bull who was ready to go, but the heifers should not get pregnant by that time. So I had to put him separate. But then I was like, okay, I bought a bull calf, which is really nice. And then I have to separate him from his herd. I don't want to piss him off, and he, really wants to do something and I don't let him. So I was like, okay, what do I do with him? His name is Henry. So I said, Henry, what do we do? And I came up with the idea, maybe I buy a female, which is already bred, or maybe a little bit older. And that's difficult in Europe to find a cow. And I was searching the internet up and down, calling people. I called the one breeder in Austria and asked him if he would sell me one of his breeding cows or a bred heifer or something that I could put with my bull so he's not lonely and upset about it. And he's like, no, he doesn't do that. And then I found a couple in Germany who had like a few Highland cows and a few Longhorns. And they had a female, which was, I think, 6 years old by the time. And they wanted to keep an offspring of her, a bull calf, for breeding. And they needed to get rid of her because they only had one herd and they couldn't separate the bull from the herd. So it was just the other way around. And it was just a perfect match. But then it turned out I cannot import her to Austria because she had some sort of disease. And we had to wait 6 months to get her to Austria. So I was like, oh, this doesn't help me much then, because that's exactly the time where I would need her. So another Austrian breeder who was really, really small called me because he saw that I was looking for a cow. And he had a cow who had a calf that died 3 days after birth. And this cow got crazy after that, and he wanted to slaughter her because he couldn't go inside the barn. She was attacking him because he was taking out the dead calf. And he said, I'm gonna slaughter her. So if you want, you can have her. I mean, I'm gonna sell her to you. And I was like, do I want the cow that you can't go inside the barn and she's trying to kill you every time you go there? And I was like, okay, well, if he's gonna slaughter her, I can take her. I can give it a try. And if it's not working out, I'm going to slaughter her. And we got her. And Henry was really happy that he had a lady. And she was bred by the time. So there was no job for him, but he was not lonely anymore. And she was really difficult. So she was, she chased me over the fence several times.
Oh, wow.
And she didn't like men at all. So my husband couldn't get near her. And I was like, that's a good idea, I'm not sure. But we'll wait. Give her a bit of time. And then she kind of settled in and she realized, there's no other calves around. There's just my heifers that they were 1.5 years by the time. And there's her bull, Henry, who was so nice with her. They would, lick each other and sleep together. And he was so happy to have her. And then she kind of settled in and she relaxed. And by the time she had her calf, that was really difficult because she tried to protect it with her life. And I bought one of those electric cattle sticks. I don't know if you have that in the US.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm gonna buy that just for safety. I'm not trying to hurt her, but I'm not trying to get killed either. So I went inside and I had to ear tag the calf, that's the law in Austria. So I went inside, with the stick in my hand like this, and I was like, oh my God, she's gonna kill me. And she was looking at the stick and, touching it with her nose, and then she got shocked. And then I said, get off! And I yelled at her, and she was so shocked, getting shocked, and me yelling, that after that, when she saw the stick, she would take off. And I was like, well, that was easy.
And leave her calf, huh?
Yes. And then I could ear tag the calf and everything was fine. I mean, she's still here, so I didn't slaughter her. She's a really good mama. She raises really good calves every year. When she has a newborn, you have to be a little bit careful, so you have to watch her. But she's never attacked me ever since. Nothing.
So is she the only one that you've kind of added to your herd from someone else, or over the years have you found a way to incorporate more animals from other herds in Austria or Europe?
Well, in total, I have 3 cows that I bought from other breeders. That's, the crazy one. The one that I wanted to import that had the disease, I did import her 6 months after quarantine. And she's my lead cow now, so I'm really happy to have her. She's really great. I mean, she's, from a breeding perspective, not perfect. She's fairly small and she's white with black ears, but she's a really good lead cow. So I call her name and she comes running and everybody follows her. And that's really helpful. And she's not the cuddling type, so she doesn't want to be touched a lot. But she comes when I call her, and she's really, really nosy. So whenever something's going on, she's there. And she's very protective over the herd. So when there's someone coming close to the pasture, I just have to look at her and to see, is it okay or not? Because if it's not okay, she would stand in front and she would look at the others and, place them. Yeah. And she would be in front protecting the herd. And that's really amazing. I've never seen this dynamic in animals before. And that's, I think, a trait that Longhorns have compared to other cattle. Mm-hmm. They're really protective over the herd.
Yeah, there kind of always seems to be that matriarch cow that, they all look to for cues and who is very protective for sure.
Yeah.
So if someone from the United States was to look at your herd or look on your website at your animals, what do you think would be the biggest difference in traits and, breeding qualities and everything from your herd to some of the herds here?
Horn. We are far behind in terms of horn. And I think we're quite behind in terms of overall, the body of the cows are not as good as what you have over there. So the overall conformation is, so when I look a lot on the internet on US websites, and when I look at the cattle there and I look at mine, I really see the difference. And that's basically one of my targets is to change that in Europe. I mean, there are a few really good cows and there are a few breeders who focus on that, but there are many breeders who just, take whatever they get. And that's basically what I did at the beginning. I didn't look at anything. I just wanted Longhorns and that's it. And that's a bit of a problem we have over here.
So how are you said that you're trying to, change that. What types of things are you doing, or what do you have planned for the future that you're trying to work towards that more?
We have a very limited genetic pool over here in Europe. So we have, of course, the genetics from this one breeder in Germany where I brought most of my cattle from. Since she has a very, very large herd, she has 28 female cows. So it's nothing like, I saw the podcast with Randy Murray the other day and I was like, oh, really? I mean, he has 1,000 cows?
Right?
Eight. That's a lot difficult, to select. But well. She has the biggest herd with, I think, 28 or 30 female cows to breed. And, you see her genetics everywhere. So then you have a few that are doing embryo transfer, but you end up seeing the same embryos. So you see the same genetics again. They're not the same as hers, but you know exactly where they're coming from. So many of them are coming from the Dickinsons. So that's why I said, okay, that's not a big of an option for me, because then I would have a bit more of the same, which is not what I want. So I'm in touch with a few breeders in the US to maybe go a different route and to push that into a direction where we can get faster, more different genetics to Europe.
So are there also events or socials that you all kind of get together, and whether you bring some animals or just get together and, talk about tips and tricks and kind of try to learn from each other? Is there anything like that there that, would be comparable to our futurities and sales and shows?
No, there's nothing comparable to that. And the reason is very easy, because people are very lazy over here, and they I don't know why, but they have trouble loading their cattle. They have trouble, if they have to drive 2 hours, it's too far, way too far. We're in Austria. I mean, that's like so small compared to the US. You haul the cattle from Texas to Ohio and Kentucky, and I was like, what? No, nobody would do that over here. And the next thing is, there is no breeders association for Texas Longhorns in Europe. And there's a legal reason, because if you set up a breeding organization or a breeding association, only the officials of the agricultural chamber can do that. And I tried it for 2 years, and they always turned us down because they said the population of Longhorns is too small to put all that effort in it. And even for Austria, the population of Longhorns is by far too small to invest the time and the money to even implement them into an existing breeding organization. Like they have the meat cow breeding organizations, or they just don't want to. And and you cannot go to any events where there are other cattle because people are scared of them. And what I'm doing, or what I did, is I sat together with a few very small breeders in Austria, and we set up our own association, which is actually, it's not a breeding organization or anything. It's for protecting animals. And it's very difficult legally what you are allowed to set up and what not. So, but this is kind of a loophole. And that's now our organization in Austria, where we say that's Texas Longhorn Österreich, basically. And we do a meeting once a year, at least, where all the breeders who are part of it come together, and we discuss how we can promote the cattle, how we can promote the meat, what we can do to make things better, how we can sell breeding cattle and all that kind of things, what marketing we're doing. And we've last year in September, it's been the first time where a live Texas Longhorn cow was shown at an agricultural fair, at an exhibition. It took me quite a while to get the permission to do that, but we kind of did it together as an association, and we placed one cow at an Austrian agricultural exhibition, and it was amazing. So people were, our booth was full of people the entire time, and we were dead after that. But it was really great to see that people are interested in it, and they want to see it, but it takes a lot of effort. And
that's amazing.
We're going to do it again this year. So
has there been any other headway that you all have made through the organization?
Well, we have, what do you mean exactly?
So that's a pretty impressive thing that you got accomplished by having a Longhorn be able to be shown. Are there other things that you as a group have gotten to do, or, strides that you've made that wouldn't have been done without the organization and all of you working together?
We have sold heifers to the Netherlands, and which is far, far away from Austria. And it doesn't make sense to sell just 1 or 2 heifers because the transport costs are killing you. So I have a partner in the Netherlands, and she asked, do you have heifers for sale? And I said, yes, 1. She was like, 1? I was like, yeah, I only have a few cows. I mean, I don't have that many heifers. What do you want? I have 8 cows now. By the time I had 6. And she was like, okay, well, 1 is not that many. And then I said, wait a minute. I mean, I'll ask the others. I'll ask the other breeders, and maybe they have something for sale. And then I asked them, and then we put together, I think, 14 or 15 heifers. And I made a sales catalog, really professional, on Excel. And I sent it to her, and she was like, wow, that's amazing. Yes. if we can, arrange the paperwork and the transport and everything, she would like to buy them. And then we did. And I was so amazed that we managed to do it. And, we had them from 4 or 5 different breeders. And we put them to a facility here close to my place, because you're not allowed in Austria or in Europe to get cattle from other farms to your farm and then transport them together from your ranch to another ranch. You need to be a certified European cattle collection facility. And it takes about 2 years to get certified for that. So I said,
Oh, wow.
God, screw that. It was another thing where I thought, okay, I'm just going to take the cattle to my ranch and then we put them on a trailer and ship them to the Netherlands. No. My state vet said, no, you don't do that. Yeah, but we managed to do it. It took us about half a year to get all the paperwork and everything done. And then we as a group managed to ship those heifers to the Netherlands. And we did it for, I think, 4 or 5 times in a row.
That's amazing.
And I managed to find a little loophole to bring the cattle actually to my ranch. And I have to keep them for 30 days and then I can ship them. And that's what I'm doing now. So I bring the other cattle to my ranch and then I do all the paperwork and the DNA testing and the blood test for all the different diseases that you need to export them. And then off they go. Yeah.
That's very...
Yeah, and we're the only ones in Europe that are working together. Like in the other countries, like Germany, they have quite a few breeders of Texas Longhorns, but they're not working together at all. And I think that's kind of sad.
Hidden Springs Ranch, located in central North Carolina, is committed to registered Texas Longhorns. From our high-end breeding stock down to our delicious Longhorn beef sticks, check us out at hslonghorns.com or on Instagram at Hidden Springs Ranch. Hidden Springs Ranch, where they're bred to turn heads.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Cantera Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at CanteraCattleCompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing canteracattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real, and unsolicited advice and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink, we're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Hey, if you love From the Pasture with Hired Hand, why not go check out my podcast, The Big Iron Podcast with Andrew Shigori, where we dive into the world of registered Texas Longhorns and what it means to be an agriculture entrepreneur in the modern world, with a little southern flair, of course. Find the Big Iron Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Love what you're hearing? Be sure to check out our Pickup Truck Confessions. It's a video series where we hop in the truck or rental car and interview a variety of breeders about what drives their passion for their livestock, how they got started in the breed of their choice, marketing tips, and more. And now back to the podcast.
So if this podcast gets out, and gets good publicity in Europe, what would kind of your call or your advice to your fellow breeders who are listening? What would you say to them?
I think it would be great to get internationally in Europe more a platform where we can talk to each other. So, we will not manage to get something like futurities like you have. That's just so far away. I don't think we will anytime soon manage to do that. Of course, it would be great because then you can see what quality of cattle are out there and where are you with your program, because you have no comparison at all. So I have my herd. My herd is perfect according to me because I have nobody else to look at it. So that's a bit of a problem. So I think that's what drives. Well, there is at least no big improvement in quality because you have no comparison. That's kind of sad. So I think it would be really great if there would be more people pushing for better quality and for comparison. And if it doesn't have to be like a competition, it shouldn't be. It should just be, an exchange of information and an exchange of thoughts and discussing things and maybe, helping each other out sometimes. Yeah.
What about what advice would you have, or what would you want to say to breeders in the United States that are listening that, maybe want to get involved in? I know you said you're talking to a few already about, embryos and kind of the future, but, if other folks wanted to get involved, what would you say to them?
Put your calves on the internet before they're vaccinated. That's a big thing that we have over here. When I try to look for potential animals where we can bring the genetics over here, by the time I see them on the web pages of the breeders, they're vaccinated and they're out of the game. So what's really cool for me is to see the breeding information, to see which cow has been bred to which bull. You see that only on a few web pages, and they're not very, I don't know, if you have a herd of 1,000 cows, it's not that easy to keep up all this information. I understand that. But that's information that's really, really cool for me to see, okay, I do have a few favorite cows, that I look at, and a few favorite breeders where I know they're using this and that bulls, and then I look at the matings, but by the time I see the calves that got out of those matings on the internet, they're vaccinated because then they have, and then I can't use them for Europe at all. That's a bit of a problem. So I need to catch them before they're vaccinated, and I know it's difficult because I know people like Randy Murray or so. They get calves every day, and by the time they're weaned, they're vaccinated. So they bring them in once or twice a year, the whole herd, and then they wean the calves. By the time they're weaning them, they're vaccinating them, they're taking pictures and put them on the internet. And then I see them and I'm like, oh my God, those are pretty calves. I really like them. And then they're vaccinated. And that's, for us, it would be really helpful to have this information a little bit earlier. Or if you have somebody who's really interested in doing something for Europe, to get in touch with me or to get in touch with us, so we can discuss how to do that, or what matings they're planning or something. So for us, yes.
Can you speak a little bit to, let's say that there were calves you found that weren't vaccinated. Can you speak a little bit to what the process would be that follows if you wanted to import them?
I cannot import the calf itself, so it will stay in the U.S. anyway. But it could get to a breeding station, and it could be certified for semen export, or it could be certified to produce embryos, so to be used on a cow to flush.
And what do you, when you're on the internet looking for those types of animals, what are the top 2 traits that you're looking for to improve your herd?
It's color and overall conformation. So of course, horn is also a topic, but it's not that big because people are scared of longhorns in Europe anyway. So if you have like 100-inch animals, yeah, we are happy if we have like 60 or 70-inch overall. I mean, we have a few that are 80-inch, but that's like, I think 5 animals in total in Europe. So we are so far behind. Of course, that's a thing that we need to improve. But for me personally, color is really important because that's what sells over here. So a flashy calf is immediately sold. It doesn't matter if it has horns or not. I mean, it should have horns, but the rest is not so important. And I'm of the opinion that those are meat cattle, so they should have meat on their bones, so that you can use the ones that you're not using for breeding for something else. That's why I think weight and the overall conformation is important, really important. And what I don't like is I've seen that in dog breeding, for example, where they focus so much on certain traits that in the end the animals are suffering from it. So like certain dog breeds that can't give natural birth to their puppies because the heads are too big. That's something I really want to avoid. And I'm a bit worried where the direction of horn will go, because there is a limit to it. I mean, they're not gonna have 200-inch horn. Their necks are gonna break sooner or later. And I'm looking at the age of when those animals are dying, and I fear that they're gonna get younger and younger, and that's not what I want to see overall. So I think horn is a little bit critical. It's great and it's nice and it's beautiful, but there should, health should not be the suffer from that.
No, I think that's a great point. Let's switch gears a little bit and tell me about a few of your favorites that you have in your herd.
my large herd is actually, there's one of them that's Gracie, and she accidentally got bred by Henry because he jumped the fence when she was 14 months old, so she's very small. She got a healthy calf, and I was like, how can this happen one night and they're just teenagers. Yeah, so she got a really young mom, and that you can still tell she's very small, but she's so friendly, and she's like a puppy. Whenever she has a calf, she comes and shows me. She's like, look, I have a new calf, and she's so she's not, she's really, really nice. Whenever I walk in the pasture, she comes up to me, puts her head on the ground so I can give her scratches, and so that's and yeah, she's. Besides that, she's really small. I really like her horn, and yeah, she really always has flashy calves, bull calves all the time. Unfortunately, but yeah, no, she's one of my favorites actually.
And did you? I know anyone listening and not watching can't see it, but there's a beautiful painting behind Lisa here on the interview. Did you make the painting or did you commission it?
A friend of mine made it.
It's beautiful.
If I did it probably wouldn't look like that.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah. Then of course I have my bull, Henry. He's when I look at the bulls that you have in the US, he's nothing to compare. He's nothing special. He has no great horn. He has really bad conformation, but he's the sweetest and nicest guy. And I have 2 little kids, and they can go to the pasture, and he just comes up and he's so friendly, and he passes that on to his calves. I even had a breeder bring one of his calves to my place to breed with Henry because she was so crazy, and he tried to AI her, and it just wouldn't work because you cannot lock her up and anything. So he brought her to my place, and it worked out perfect. And she got a bull calf out of that. Who was just like Henry. He was so friendly, and they sold him for €5,000, which is a great deal. So that's why I really like him. I mean, when I look at the bulls that you have in the US, I'm like, oh my God, I wish he was better from a conformation and everything, but his character is just key. And that's
Well,
why
one thing that keeps going through my mind when I'm listening to you is, and maybe this is, it's probably easier for me to say in hindsight than for you to be patient and wait for it to happen. But when I was looking at your website, a lot of your animals reminded me of the animals I had when I was younger. And so if you think, yes, it's been like 20 some years, but you should be able to make those strides more quickly because you're able to research what works and what doesn't, to make the gains that you're wanting to see in body and color and that sort of stuff. But, I think you need to give yourself more credit. I don't think you're quite as far behind as what you, what you feel like you are.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. Yeah, because when I look on the internet or I love watching the live stream for auctions, and then I see all those animals, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could be there and just buy one and bring it over here. And you have such a great variety where breeders can choose from. We don't have that, you have to deal with what you have, and it makes it quite difficult to improve it because there's not much you can select. And when I hear Randy Murray saying he selects out 80%, I'm like, if I did that, I end up with one calf. So, yeah, well, that's time is a big topic. It takes forever. It really takes forever, and it's a big investment you make. When I bought my first calves, I knew it would take about 4 years until I get any kind of money back. That's something you have to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're definitely in a different boat there. You're up against a lot more challenges and required to be even more patient than, a lot of the breeders here.
Yeah, I mean, I see people buying the most expensive cattle and having like 1 year a herd where other breeders would need a decade to get to, because you have the option to buy them. You can go to an auction and you buy a cow for 700,000 euros. I mean, pay if you have the money, yes, but at least you have the option. Or, I mean, there's a few heifers that are just great. They're sold for an affordable amount of money. Mm-hmm. So we don't have that over here. You don't, yeah.
So I'm thinking you said you're watching all these hired hand live sales. That's, if I'm doing the time change correctly, you're basically up in the middle of the night, right?
My husband loves that.
That's some dedication right there.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, what haven't I asked you about that you feel like is important to share with the folks who listen to our podcast?
What I really want to mention is the breeders organizations you have in the US, like the ITLA and TLBA. I'm part of both of them because I couldn't decide which one is better or more suitable for international business. And I would love to see a bit more dedication from them towards the international market, especially Europe, because we have like the futurities or something. We don't have a lot of chances to get our cattle evaluated in any kind of way by professionals. I can get them evaluated over here, but people don't have any knowledge about Longhorns, so they don't know what to look for. There is an ITLA judging clinic once a year. I've participated 3 times, but I wish there would be a little bit more than that to support European breeders or international breeders. I can't speak so much about other areas in the world, but I think that would be really important to educate the people, to educate what to look for. What I didn't have that. I bought just any kind of Longhorns back then, and still, the main trait I'm looking for is color, and that I think would be really great to have, or to have somebody that you can contact where you say, okay, I'll send you pictures, or maybe we make a live stream, go through my pasture, you look at my cattle and tell me what's good and what's bad. That would be really great to have.
I think that's a great ask.
The ITLA is doing the judging clinic, which is great, which is in the middle of the night. They record it. You can also, and what's a big topic is it's all in English. So there's a lot of breeders here in Europe that don't speak English at all. So I asked a few, do you want to participate in the judging clinic? And they said yes, but I don't understand a single word they're saying. It would be pointless then, yes. So what I did once is I watched it and I took notes and I translated it to German. And I told the other breeders about it and shared it. But, that's a lot of effort. And I have 2 kids. I have a farm. That's a lot of work. And I think something like that would be really cool to have some guidelines or something.
For sure. I think I agree. I could see where that would be frustrating.
Yes, it even starts with the color. When you register a calf, the Austrian breeders write brown and white as a color description for every calf, or black and white, or black. They don't even write solid red because they don't know these terms. So it would be like that. It would be cool to have, picture of different colors and the description. What do you call it? That would be really cool. I have trouble myself. How to describe?
Yeah, that's a great point. Things that we probably take for granted that are easier for us to get answers to, are different for you all to get answers to.
Yeah, in Austria we have Holsteins and Fleckvieh. They're black and white or red and white. So those terms they're familiar with, but the rest, like Brindle or Parker Brown. A lady once sent me a picture and she's like, yeah, I have a black calf. And I said, it's not black, it's Parker Brown. It's what? It's Parker Brown. I've never heard this term before. So, and she's been breeding Longhorns longer than me. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to join me. I really appreciate it. I know we were talking a little bit before we got started and your kids are off reading and your dogs are being quiet. And I know it's a busy time for you. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, for giving me this opportunity. I feel really honored.
Of course. I feel like we'll have to do a follow-up in a year or two and hear more about all the progress you made, because I can tell that you're definitely making strides and working hard to change things for European breeders.
Yes, I'm trying.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.